what I want to try to do today is deal with what I would call the most popular subject of the book of 1 John. Now, you have to understand, this is the first time I've ever been through the book of 1 John like this. And maybe we could go farther, maybe we could talk more. Burke challenged me this morning about skipping a really, really difficult passage, and I said, yes, I'm going to skip the really difficult passage because I haven't a clue what it means. But I want to talk about the most popular subject. At least it's a subject in this little tiny book that John talks about more than any other. And one lesson does not do it justice, but I want to give you a reminder this morning of this subject. So we're going to talk about this word, love. Ronnie prayed about it just a moment ago, this subject of love. I, for a long time, kind of thought that this was a fluff subject. And by that I mean that if I would be sitting in the pews as you are sitting this morning and someone got up to speak and they started talking on the subject of love, I would first think they probably couldn't think of anything else to say that day, so they all just fell back and used this fluff subject of love. I have now reached the point where I realize there's nothing about that subject or that word that is fluff. I wonder if you would agree with me this morning if I said that this word is a really common word in our vocabulary. It's just used a lot. And I wonder if you would agree with me if I said that maybe it is a misunderstood word. And because it's a misunderstood word, it's so often misapplied. I think maybe that's true. So I want us to think about what it really means. I suspect if I asked you this morning to define the word, if I'd put a piece of paper in every pew and a pen in every pew and I said, write a definition of love, I suspect that all across the room we would have difficulty writing down a definition to the word love. Maybe that's why it's so misused, misapplied, because we really don't understand the word. So I want to give you two principles this morning as we at least get into the lesson. There are more principles, but two principles I think are really important to this subject of love. The first is this. Love is the chief identifying mark for all those who claim to be a follower of Jesus. It is the chief. It's the most important. You may even be wondering about that kind of statement this morning. You may still be in this camp that I was in for a long time, thinking this was a fluff subject, thinking this was an optional subject. What are the identifying marks whereby people know that you are a follower of Jesus? Do they know it because of how many times you go to an assembly like this? Do they know it by the way you dress? How do they know? And you may come up with many different identifying marks. I'm just saying that this one of love is the most important of all and the chief of all. I think there was a song we used to sing. You will know them by their love. Didn't we used to sing a song like that? You will know them by their love. And so John would have remembered. Now he's an old man, but he would have remembered way back earlier in life when he was just a younger person following Jesus, and he would have remembered that last night before the crucifixion of Jesus. Jesus had a lot of things to say. Jesus went off by himself to pray, and even John was not far away when he went off by himself to pray because he took Peter and James and John with him. And he would have heard him pray for this massive concept of unity, that all who believe in the name of Jesus would be unified, not so splintered. And he would have heard Jesus that night say this mysterious statement that now in his old age becomes such a major emphasis in his life. The chief identifying mark. So you know the passage. You know that last night of the life of Jesus in John chapter 13. He's the one who records it, by the way. Verses 34 and 35, where Jesus looks at the 11, and it seems to carry over to us. A new command I give to you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my followers, you are my disciples, that you belong to me. By this, everyone's going to know if you love one another. It is the chief identifying mark. This thing of loving each other. And you probably are a bit sober at this point because this is so hard. This is so hard. It's so hard that I think we live as though it is optional. Everybody understand that? It is so hard. I think we live as though this is really not what Jesus intends, and yet it is. The chief identifying mark is this thing called love. Now, here's why it's so difficult. The second principle is love is a behavior. If I had asked you to write a definition, if everyone would have written a definition, you would have probably gotten into the emotional part of it. You would have probably used the word feeling at some point. It is a feeling. And yes, love may encompass that. But love is a behavior. So some of you might remember a good 20 years ago, there was a country and Western artist who was really popular for a while named Clint Black. I liked Clint Black. I think he came out of Houston. I liked him because I could understand the words of his song. Most of the times I listen to a singer sing and I can't even process or understand what they're singing, so I just turn it off. But I could understand him. And he would write most of his songs and he would perform those songs. Toward the end of his career, his primary career, he wrote this song, and I think it's the one he performed with his wife, who was not a professional singer. She was a professional actress, but here's the title of his song, and here's the primary lyric of his song. Love is something that you do. Love is something that you do. And so in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, beginning in verse 4, it's exactly what Paul says. Love is something that you do. Love is patient. There have been a couple of times this week when my patience has not worked so well. Okay? And love is kind. There have been a couple of times this week. I didn't even realize it altogether, but I was told that I was not kind. Now, I kind of feel like if I'm told that I'm not kind, I probably haven't been kind. Okay? And I can probably keep this up with every one of these deals, okay? Love does not boast. It's not proud. Love's not the kind of thing that kind of wants to walk by and say, guess what I did this week? Guess what I bought this week? Guess what good thing happened to me this week? It does not dishonor others. That's kind of this idea of always protects. It doesn't speak badly about others. It doesn't tell the latest juicy story of gossip that you can find, and you can't wait to get there to tell somebody about it. It doesn't discredit other people. It's not self-seeking, which is what we were told by Paul in Philippians chapter 2 to be like Jesus when he said, why don't you consider the opinions of others better than your own? Why don't you just pause and think about somebody else for a moment? What would you rather do? How would you rather have it? It's not so important that I get my way. What would you like? And it's not easily angered. It's not easily angered. I think everyone that's close to me at all at Oklahoma Christian right now can tell you, if I just say, name the principles that Ken Jones operates on, they would say this one: never flinch. I tell them all the time, never flinch. I don't care what anybody comes and tells you. If a building next door is on fire, whatever it is, don't flinch. Now, you may be raging on the inside, but you don't give it away. You don't give away what you're thinking, it's not easily angered. This thing of love doesn't flinch very easily. It pauses. And I tell everybody, instead of showing your emotions so quickly, you followed up with a question. How are you going to handle that? What are you going to do? Don't jump into the emotional side of things, because when you get emotional, how many times have I said it? Your intellect goes where? The more your emotions go up, the less smart you appear to be. So if you get really angry, you don't act very smart, and you're not very smart. So love is this kind of thing that's not easily angered. It doesn't flinch. And it keeps no records of wrongs. Now that's why Jesus can say to all of you who follow me, I want to take you this far. I want you to take your life this far in following me. I want you to love even and everybody can say it, your enemies. And we always just read that and pass it away and say, impossible. It's impossible. Not when you look at love as it really is. It is a behavior you choose. And love has this really short memory. And so love is this behavior that really works at not remembering wrongs. And that means that I can forgive. I can forgive. Do you know what? I just give you a little secret. It's possible for me to forgive you and not like you one bit. Do you know that? It's possible for me to make up my mind that you're forgiven, as far as I'm concerned, and still not like you. Is that possible? I think it is. There's some things you're not going to like in this world. And there are some people and their actions and their ways and what they said and what they did yesterday and 5 years ago and 35 years ago, and you don't like it, and you don't like the way they did it, but you can forget it. And you can make up your mind, I am not going to hold this against them any longer. Love forgives. It keeps no record of wrongs. It doesn't make a list of everything you did wrongly and hold it against you forever. Love's a behavior. It's a behavior you choose. So if we could just remember those two things. By this you will be known. It's the chief identifying mark. And it's the way you live. It's the way you show up with your neighbor. It's the way you show up at the coffee shop. It's the way you show up at work. It's the way you show up when things get really frantic. Do you show up like that? Because that's what love is. Now, I want you to listen to the words of John. And it's going to be different. I just want to let John speak to you. All you have to do is just listen. Well, there won't be anything on the screen except words of John, okay? Everybody ready for this? Just listen to what he says. I probably should have brought some glasses. Dear friends, I am not writing you a new command, but an old one which you have had from the beginning. The old command is the message you've heard. Yet I am writing you a new command. Its truth is seen in him and in you. Because the darkness is passing, the true light is already shining. Anyone who claims to be in the light but hates a brother or sister is still in the darkness. Anyone who loves their brother and sister lives in light. And there's nothing in them to make them stumble. But anyone who hates a brother or sister is in the darkness and walks around in the darkness. They don't know where they're going because the darkness has blinded them. This is the message you have heard from the beginning. We should love one another. Do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. We know we have passed from death to life because we love each other. Anyone who does not love remains in death. Anyone who hates a brother or sister is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life in him. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. We ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. So if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with action and in truth. This is his command, to believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another. Dear friends, let us love one another. For love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world, that we might live through him. This is love. Not that we love God, but he loved us, and he sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved you, you also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God. But if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. God is love. Whoever loves lives in God and God in them. We love because he first loved us. Whoever claims to love God and yet hates his brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love his brother or sister whom they can see cannot love God whom they cannot see. He has given us this command. Anyone who loves God must also love their brother and their sister. That's what John says about it. That's what John says about it. Look at this next statement. It is a way of life. It's just a way of life. I personally do wish that it were optional. that it was optional. I personally do wish that I could choose sometimes not to do it and other times to do it. Life would be so much easier. But we are a people who we like to say, well, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and I am okay. When in the New Testament, Jesus comes and he says, all this, do this, and do this, and do this, and you're okay, was done away with in the old law. And I'm giving you a new way of life. And go back now and read this afternoon the Sermon on the Mount, or read it sometime next week, and see if everything he's not talking about is a behavior that fits under the heading of love. It's just the way we are supposed to live. But I wish it were optional, because it's really hard. And if you want to look at all of my failures, if you want to look at all the things that I've done poorly in my life, it will fall under the heading that I haven't lived a life of love the way I should have. And yet here is Peter writing, and he's writing late in life too, and he'll say something like, okay, all of you Christians, you add to your faith virtue, and you add to virtue knowledge, and you add to knowledge patience, and you add temperance in there, and godliness in there, and to all this he'll say you add, you remember what the word is? Love. And if these things be in you in increasing order, if you keep growing in it, you'll never be barren or unfruitful in the work of your God. So I am a work in progress. Even with the color of the hair, I'm still a work in progress, trying to figure out how I become more kind and I become more patient, and I'm not so easily angered. I don't flinch, and I try my best to say, okay, I'm going to work for their good instead of my own and put them ahead of myself. And yeah, I know how you treated me yesterday, and I know how you treated my dad last week, and I know how you treated, and instead of wanting to fight, I say, okay, I may not be able to truly run up and hug you, but I will forgive. I will set it aside. I will put it aside. And so I am a work in progress, as are you. And the good news is, you can't use it as an excuse. I mean, I think I use it as an excuse sometime, but the good news is God's grace does reach you where you are and does cover you as long as you're trying. So I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm not trying to make you walk away from this assembly this morning and saying it's hopeless, because in a sense it is. I'm trying to say it is. I'm saying you've got to keep trying. Can I just say this, and I'll quit. Maybe it's taken me all this time to look at other people and see all the messes that they're in too. And I want to be so quick to judge, and I want to be so quick to be harsh, and I want to be so quick. But then I began to try to think about all that they have gone through. And I began to try to think about the life that they had growing up. And I began to think about all the hardships. And I think, well, why wouldn't they be like that? Why should I be so judgmental? And why should I be so harsh? Because the more and more I look at people, the more and more I understand everybody has a harder time. And in our world in which we live today, it's harder and harder. It's harder and harder. So may we be the people We're not going to be 10,000 in the city of Cordell, obviously. We're not going to be 5,000 in number in the city of Cordell. It doesn't make any difference if we're 3. May we be the people who shine. And now I'm convinced that the only thing that really shines is for you to behave in love. And sometimes you have to put limits on that. And you're going to think this is really strange, but you can't enable people to continue their bad behavior, but you don't judge them and you don't be harsh with them. You don't be mean to them. You just can't enable them. You can still behave right toward them. Does that make any sense at all? This is really complicated. But it's what you and I have been called to live in Jesus. And all through John's writing, you know what he says? You do it because he did it. If you want to know who God is, John says, sum it up in one word: love. Someone else might say he's holy. Someone else might say he's righteous. John says, let's just choose for my writing the word love. And he loved you first, by the way. You know how much he loved you? Enough to send his son to die for you so that you might be with him and so that his grace could continue to reach you through his son Jesus, through the blood of his son Jesus. That's what God has done. Now, is it too much for me to see someone in need and I have the ability to take care of the need and to go ahead and do it? Is it too much to ask? Is it too much to ask for me when I really don't like at all what you just said, but I don't respond in kind? I choose to not flinch and to be calm about it. Is it too much for me to be a little patient when I'm in a hurry and you just keep dragging your feet? Happens all the time at our house, by the way. Is it too much for ask me to be a little bit more patient? Is it too much for me to refuse to repeat the story that I just heard? Maybe I could try to do better with this thing called love. So let's end and let's talk about Jesus. And let's remember Jesus. Everything about Jesus was love. Don't you find it incredible when he talked to those 11 men? He said, it's going to be love that they'll know. It's going to be love that they'll know that you and I are on the same page. We're one. It's not going to be the miracles that you do necessarily. It's not going to be the great sermons you give necessarily. It's not. Just live like I lived. And that's what Jesus did. He walked on this earth a life of love.